Stefan.
Hello. Guten Tag. I'm afraid I'm going to be speaking in English for the whole of the presentation. My English is bad enough as it is without speaking in German. So, and apologies for the fonts. So I'm going to talk about making it real, content and commerce. So here was the topic that we were given, and I'm going to talk about a no-silo approach to delivering content and commerce. So if we start with the first point, relevant content drives commerce. So if you create great content, you'll drive great commerce. But relevant content drives commerce, and the consumer's attention is it's fragmented. The content is what's going to grab their attention. The story is becoming as important as the product. And the consumer wants the story in their context, on their device, in their moment of need. Today, the challenge is not just getting the content to the right consumer at the right time, but it's also tomorrow it will need to be relevant and real time. So you really need to be in the moment that the buyer wants to consume your content. So how do we do that? Well, that's creating this content explosion. As you can see from Forrester, most consumers engage with around 11 pieces of content before they make a decision. Now, it obviously depends on what you're selling. If you're selling a car, that could be higher. If you're selling a consumer good, that may be lower. But nowadays, people are doing a lot more research before they make a decision about buying something. So that's the advice from Forrester. What does this mean? It means the content demand that we're all facing is coming from the consumer. Being ultra-relevant requires a lot of content. So relevancy is key at the moment, and therefore we have to create a lot of content. But not just different content items, not just different content items that describe the same product, but they have to be in multiple formats, optimized for the channel that somebody wants to consume it, and for the persona and the action you want them to form. And the content needs to be in order to do this, the content needs to be well understood. Right now, we talk about understanding the consumer, but very few people talk about understanding their content. So let me tell you a bit of story about understanding your content and why that's relevant. This is a mug. You might sell mugs. This is a Gianfranco Zola mug. Not particularly relevant here in Germany, but nonetheless, Gianfranco Zola was a player for Chelsea. This is me. This is a waiter that I met in a hotel. This is Chelsea, he's a Liverpool fan, and this is a young Chelsea fan. So these are the actors in my story that I'm going to tell. So all of us have got one thing in common. We all like football. So I like football. Gianfranco Zola mug is about football. This waiter over here that supports Liverpool likes football, and this young fan also likes football. But if I'm going to talk to them, we're going to share with them content. Is it going to be relevant for everybody? If I talk about the mug, the Chelsea mug from Gianfranco Zola, the Liverpool fan is not only not going to be relevant for him, but he's going to hate it. He's going to be turned right off. He's not going to buy your mug. So we're looking for Chelsea fans. So we've got to tag our content appropriately. So we found our Chelsea fan. But is it going to be relevant to this young chap? Well, it's not, because if you know anything about Chelsea, you know anything about Gianluca Vialli, he's from a particular period of time. He played from between 1996 and 2003. So you learn everything, don't you, when you go to these presentations. So it's not relevant for this young fan, it's relevant for this old fan, which is me. And so I'm going to be interested in the Chelsea mug. So the content that we create around that mug needs to appeal to me. It needs to be tagged as Gianfranco Zola, football, 1997-2003 in Chelsea. And that's how come you'll find that the relevant product is right for me. The other challenge you have with content is saying who it's not right for. So this is not right for a Liverpool fan. When you start mapping these content relationships, it gets quite tricky. Here's a different story. This story is about Gianfranco Zola when he was the manager of Birmingham. Follow me on this story. So here's the manager of Birmingham. Birmingham, a rival football team. Do I hate Birmingham? I don't hate Birmingham. So they're not going to offend me. But I'm going to be interested in all these other different pieces of content that are related to the same era. So if I'm in a buying cycle of this mug, then all of these pieces of content are going to be relevant. They're going to make my buying experience relevant. And of course, this needs to be driven over multiple channels, because that's how I'm going to engage, right? I'm going to engage with that mug through Facebook, through all sorts of things, and all of the news. So yesterday, the consumer found the content, so this is me searching. Tomorrow, if we create these relationships, the content finds the consumer, and therefore our products find the consumer. So if I then find that I've got an audience that are interested in Gianfranco Zola, the Chelsea fans between 1997 and 2003, this mug might be relevant for them. This explosion of content is creating a second business within many of our organizations. And that second business is now publishing content. So every single organization now, if you look at content marketing, you look at the way that we need to engage with our consumers, we're all publishing content, and we're all becoming publishers. Content is now the currency of commerce, of getting things done in any kind of business. The relevancy and personalization demands more content, as I was saying earlier with the content explosion. Big brands are buying media companies, they're hiring journalists, we're all content marketers, we're not marketers anymore. And brands are transforming themselves in this way. And if brands transform themselves, if the big brands do, if Nike do it, if Adidas do it, then we all have to, because we all have to compete with the hearts and minds of these consumers. But this second business needs to be as efficient as the first. So the starting premise of this presentation was how we need to do this in a no-silo way and be joined up with tools like Spryker. And so we need to bring efficiencies, and nobody cares about the silos. Nobody cares about these different acronyms and these different tools that we're bringing in. Things like PIM, DAM, WCM, MRM, or even e-commerce. Organizations shouldn't care about this stuff. They need to solve this enterprise challenge together with an integrated solution. Because the next wave of digital disruption is going to be ultra-convenience. So ultra-convenience is where we provide the product straight away. We've heard about Amazon doing same-day delivery and those kinds of things. It replaces cost as a buying decision. If I can have a thing now, if it's ever so convenient for me to get it, if it replaces things of itself, I won't care about cost. I'll just go with the ultra-convenience. And in the previous wave of digital disruption, it was the brittle technology and process complexity and their bricks and mortars businesses that really made them vulnerable. So the ability to change, to digitally transform, is going to be important for the next wave of retailers. And people compare everyone with these early adopters of these kinds of things. So everybody expects this level of expectation. So right now, if you're doing e-commerce, people expect it to be like Amazon. If tomorrow you're going to do ultra-convenience, you're going to need to compete with these big guys. So ultra-convenience is going to be key. And what does ultra-convenience mean? It means that we have to be absolutely hooked up together. So the content needs to be not just relevant and targeted omnichannel, but it needs to be real-time and in the moment. It also needs to be integrated to e-commerce, which is where I introduce our partner, Spryker. And that's it. Thank you very much. And we're in Hall 8.